Hello there, lovers of the tarot, beautiful people. The card we're going to look at today is the Three of Swords reversed. So, very simple symbolism here. Three swords piercing a heart, on a rainy, cloudy day. And this card is the card of sorrow, it's a card of grief, a card of sadness. And when it's reversed, it speaks about our quite often, and there are different ways of reading this card, of course, being a reversal, but quite often it speaks about an avoidance and a denial of that sorrow. And how easy is that? How often do we really feel open, willing, excited about diving into our sadness, about allowing ourselves to feel grief? Now, it's one of the more painful emotions. When the tears come, when the grief is strong, when the trauma and the inner pain is felt, and this can be a pain of rejection, it can be a pain of abandonment, it can be a pain of loss, it can be a pain of that comes from certain fears as well. But this sadness is asking to be felt when this card comes up, and what's also being asked is for us to be more aware of how we might be suppressing these emotions. Now, we can have so many different automatic or subconscious programs that help us avoid and bypass any sadness, because the moment we feel it, it usually doesn't feel good, and we'll superimpose a happy feeling on top of it. We'll have a little giggle, we'll make a joke, we'll pretend that sadness isn't there, we'll push it away, we'll squash it, we'll sweep it under the rug, and we'll hide it, and we'll lock it away because it's not safe, it's not comfortable, it's not the slightest bit empowering for us. And we feel it and we know it, and so there's this automatic subconscious rejection of this. And yet there's something important in this sadness. This sadness has come into our lives for a reason. There is something which is not quite right. Sadness always shows us, hey, something's not quite in harmony, in balance, something's not really in tune with the heart. Yeah. And that's something that's not really in tune with heart is a whole bunch of swords, which are our beliefs and ideas. And so there are somewhere down the line, there are some ideas that we are unconsciously holding on to, which are very much not in tune to our heart and desperately causing us pain. And it's important to look at these beliefs that we hold, look at these programs, look at these self-defeating, self-criticizing, condescending ideas and beliefs that are the real cause for this suffering that we might be feeling. So when this card comes up, it's not an easy one to embrace, because we have all of these mental programs that help us avoid feeling the discomfort. And so we actively have to persuade ourselves to feel uncomfortable. And this isn't an easy practice. This takes a little bit of courage, perseverance in order to create. On one front, for sure. Another reason for this card coming up reversed is because a lot of the time our grief can give us something. Our sadness, when we retreat into our sadness, and if we sit there, and I remember being a bit like this as a kid, sulking in my room in order to get attention. And my mother was empathic and caring and loving enough, and this probably triggered something, or have I done something wrong, triggered her guilt and brought her towards me. And so me being sad and moody and in a bad place emotionally would attract love, would attract attention, would attract energy coming towards me that I really felt that I wanted and lacked on a subconscious level, and I received, and this becomes a program. And so we can retreat in our own sadness in order to gain something from the world, and it can become part of our identity and our subconscious ego identity of getting what we want. And even if it's just a little bit of attention, even if it's pity, even if that pity is, oh, poor you, oh, we might hold on to sadness to receive that amount of attention, that amount of care coming from the world on the outside. There's a nature of this sadness when it's reversed to throw the blame out there on the world, on the outside, and to tell and to persuade ourselves that, yeah, this outside world is making me sad, is doing these things to me to create my tears. And this is the way we're taught to see life and to see our emotional reactions as being caused by something exterior to ourselves. But this card is asking us to turn that around and say, hey, look, we need to own the fact that it is our own self-judgments, our own programs, our own ideas which are causing this pain for us, and we need to empower ourselves with this consciousness that is required in order to stop throwing the blame to the outside world and start taking responsibility for our emotional responses towards the world and everything that we feel in this moment. If we blame the world, if we repress these feelings, if we have an identity that holds on to this sadness, we won't transform it. We may be invested in holding on to it for longer, and the repression of it will just keep it below the surface until it bubbles up, and we'll push it down, and it bubbles up, and we push it down again. And yet, when we allow it to come up completely, then we can see the patterns and the programs and the ideas and the beliefs that are behind it. And only then can we create transformational exercises. Only then can we switch on our mind to say, hey, this program, this idea doesn't work for me anymore. How can I move through this? And what is important in this whole process of feeling our sadness is a compassion that we can create towards ourselves, a compassion that we can create towards life on the outside, a letting go of judgments on a self-judgmental level, a letting go of blame on a throwing out there to the world level, and also feeling empowered by our ability to feel this pain. And if we don't, then we can slip into a level of depression, and that depression can sneak up on us to the point where we might slowly become accustomed to different levels of sadness and holding on to that. And before we know it, we're depressed, but we don't want to admit it, and we're not even able to name it. And this is also another type of subtle denial, and we might deny feeling depressed or deny becoming or diving into that depression because it doesn't, we haven't gone into it from one moment to the next. We've slipped into it by holding on to, rejecting, and not allowing ourselves to actually own the sadness that's inside of us, which is potentially a motivational emotion to bring us out and to help us understand these old programs that are piercing our heart, that are stopping our love from flowing into our lives, and stopping the consciousness, the higher consciousness, from also coming in. Another way, one last more positive way of reading this card reversed is when we've done this work and we have owned this story and the sadness is ready to leave and we're ready to claim our hearts once again, and we've pulled those swords out of our heart and they're no longer blocking us, they're no longer obstacles in the form of unconscious beliefs. We have made the unconscious conscious, and we have pulled out these swords, and we've done it so much we're ready to drop the sorrow. And that's also a valid way of seeing this card. Have a fantastic day. I hope this has helped in some way or another. All my love.